Okay, so in the last video we talked about basic unit conversions. We applied those to both SI prefixes and actual unit conversions. And in this video we're going to talk about more complicated unit conversions. And then after that you should be able to totally and completely finish your unit conversion worksheet. Okay, so just to recap, the steps for doing unit conversion problems are always start with what you're trying to convert. Always arrange the numbers so that all the units cancel out except what you want to end up with. And then step 3, always make sure that the numbers on top of each other are conversion factors, meaning are equal to each other. Okay, and make sure you know these basic unit conversions that you hopefully added to your notes last time. Okay, now the most common type of, I guess, more complicated unit conversion is one that involves multiple steps and that contains what I call a per. Now when I say it contains a per, here's what I mean. Okay, so let's say we have a unit containing per, like meters per second. And we want to convert that to, oh, I don't know, miles per hour. I don't know why I wrote per. Okay, you don't need to write per because the division sign implies per. Okay, so this is what I would consider a more complicated unit conversion. Okay, because not only do we have to convert meters to miles, but we also have to convert seconds to hours. And so those are the types of unit conversions we're going to be doing for the next few minutes. Okay, so I will show you exactly how it works. Now, in reality, there's not really anything different about these. They're the exact same steps that we've been doing, but you just need to make sure to set the problems up correctly and understand that per, if something has a per in it, that means it's really something is being divided. Okay, so let's do some examples and I will show you what I mean. So example 1. Okay, we're going to start with example 1. It says convert 15 miles per hour into meters per second. Okay, now, like any unit conversion problem, you always want to start with what you're given. But what I'm given has a per. So the way I write that is I write that as 15 miles. Okay, miles go on top. And if there's a per, that means that per hour, hour goes on the bottom. Okay, so I start with my given, and I set it up just like this. Miles on the top, hours on the bottom. Okay, that gives me miles per hour. Okay, and I'm going to do two conversions at once. Now, if I happen to know the conversion between miles and meters, then this would be very easy. But I don't have that. I could look it up, of course. But I want to use what I've given you guys, and I want you to do the same. I don't want you to be looking up exotic unit conversion factors that I don't give to you. Okay, the point is for you to be creative with what I do give you to work with. Okay, so I don't know miles to meters, but I do know. Well, actually, let's start with the time. The time conversion. Okay, so we have miles and we have hours, and so we have distance and time, and it doesn't really matter which one we convert first. And so just for simplicity, I'm going to convert hours to seconds first. Okay, now, the same conversion rules still apply. All of the units have to cancel out except what we want to end up with. So if I have hours on the bottom, that means I must have hours somewhere on the top. Okay, now, do I have a conversion factor from hours to seconds? Yes. 1 hour is 3,600 seconds. Now, what if you don't remember that? Well, then you would have to convert from hours to minutes, and then you could go from minutes to seconds. Okay, so just for simplicity, let's assume we remember this. If you didn't remember that, it would just add one extra step. It wouldn't really change too much. Okay, so 1 hour is 3,600 seconds. All right. Now, again, you might ask, how do I know, does the 3,600 go on the top or on the bottom? Well, it only works one way if you realize that hour has to go on the top. And 1 hour is 3,600 seconds. It doesn't make sense for 3,600 to be on the top because 3,600 hours is not equal to 1 second. Okay, so it only works one way. So as long as you follow the rules I've given to you, there's no way you should be making any mistakes with these unit conversion problems. Okay, you don't need to think too hard about should this number go on the top or the bottom. Make sure all the units cancel out. Make sure the numbers stacked on top of each other are actually equal to each other. and that's it. Everything else will take care of itself. Okay, now if I were to stop here, notice that hours cancels, and I would be left with miles per second. Okay, I don't want miles per second though, I want meters per second. So now I need to be creative and think, how do I convert from miles to meters without looking up a new conversion factor, just using what has been given in the past note slides. Okay, well, I do know that 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet, and I also know that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches, and I also know that 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters, and I also know that 1 centimeter is 10 to the minus 2 meters. Now at this point you might be saying, wait, wouldn't it just be easier to look up the conversion factor from miles to meters? Yeah, it probably would be, but I want you to get some practice doing these more complicated unit conversion problems. Okay, practice never hurt anybody. Okay, so I'm going to now go from miles to feet, from feet to inches, from inches to centimeters, and centimeters to meters. Okay, now what do I put down here? Well, if I have miles on the top, I have to have miles down on the bottom, and the conversion factor is 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet, and I keep going from there. I know 1 foot is 12 inches. I know that 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters, and that 1 centimeter is 10 to the negative 2 meters. Okay, always double check to make sure the units cancel out correctly. Let's see, miles on top, miles on bottom, feet on top, feet on bottom, inches, centimeters. Everything has canceled except meters is left on the top and seconds is left on the bottom. Okay, that should always be your final check. So I'm going to multiply everything on the top, 15 times 1 times 5,280 times 12 times 2.54 times 10 to the negative 2, and then on the bottom divide by 3,600. Okay, so 15 times 5,280 times 12 times 2.54 times 10 to the negative 2 divided by 3,600 gives me 6.7 meters per second. And notice I write it in the IB notation with a negative exponent. Remember, negative exponent means per, that means seconds is on the bottom. So this is 6.7 meters per second. Okay, so that is example 1. Okay, pause it there if you need to add that to your notes. As far as steps go, honestly, this is probably about as complicated as you would ever see on a unit conversion problem. This has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. I don't typically give problems with more than 5 steps. I do want you to make sure that you show your work this way, though. Okay, so let's take a look at example 2. Okay, example 2 says convert $18 per week into cents per day. Okay, so as always, you start with what you're given. I have $18, and because I have a per in there, the per tells me something is on the bottom, so $18 per week. Okay, and I need to convert dollars to cents, and I need to convert weeks to day, and it makes no difference which one I do first. Just for fun, I'm going to convert dollars to cents. I know dollars is on the top, so I have to have dollars on the bottom just to cancel, and I happen to know that $1 is equal to 100 cents. Now if you don't know that, well, I don't know, something else is wrong. Okay, you should know there's 100 pennies in a dollar at this point. Okay, so if I stop there, then dollars would cancel, and I would be left with cents per week. But I don't want cents per week, I want cents per day. So I need to convert weeks into days. Now, weeks is on the bottom. I have to have weeks on the top just to get the units to come out correct. And the conversion factor is 1 week is equal to 7 days. weeks cancel. I get 18 times 100 divided by 7. And if you type that into the calculator, you should get 257.1, and that is cents per day. I'm going to write day to the power of -1 because it's per day. Okay, so that is the answer to example 2. Okay, so hopefully you're starting to get the hang of these unit conversion problems. I want you to try to do example 3 on your own. Okay, so pause it here and finish writing down example 2 if you need to. Now let's take a look at example 3. Okay, so example 3 says convert 15 feet per second into inches per day. Okay, so pause it here and see if you can do 15 feet per second into inches per day. Okay, so just so you can check your work, I'm going to write down how you would solve this without explaining it. Okay, now I'm just typing that into the calculator, and I get a very, very big number. That is inches per day. Okay, so that is example 3. Hopefully that is what you got for example 3. Okay, pause it there if you need to look at that. Okay, now the very last type of unit conversion we're going to look at, I'm going to erase this. The very last type of unit conversion is what's called an exponential unit conversion. And you see these sometimes, not too often, but you do see them sometimes. And basically, an exponential unit conversion, at least that's what I call it, is when you have a unit conversion where things are being squared or cubed or something is being raised to a power. Okay, now here's the trick to doing these type of problems. Okay, you write down the known conversion factor and then you apply the exponential to both sides. Now, if you just read that and write that in your notes, by itself it doesn't really make any sense. Okay, so I'm going to show you what this looks like with 2 examples. Okay, example 1 says convert 1 kilometer squared. That's my given, so I'm going to go ahead and write that down. Into meters squared. Okay, so that's what I want to end up with. Now, I don't know kilometer squared to meter squared. I do happen to know a conversion factor, and I know that 1 kilometer is 10 to the power 3 meters. Okay, this is a conversion factor. This is a true statement. 1 kilometer, because kilo is 10 to the 3, so 1 kilometer is 10 to the 3 meters. Now, what's the problem with this? Well, if you look at the units don't cancel. Kilometers squared does not cancel out kilometers. So if I want all the units to cancel correctly, I need to square everything on the bottom. But remember, if 2 numbers are stacked on top of each other in a unit conversion, that means they are equal to each other. That means there's basically like an equal sign here. Okay, so in other words, if I'm squaring everything on the bottom, I also have to square everything on the top, like so. And so now what I get is I get 1 kilometer squared. I have 1 kilometer squared on the bottom, and 10 to the power 3, if you square that, you get 10 to the power 6. Okay, so 1 square kilometer is actually 10 to the power 6 square meters. Okay, so that is how you do an exponential unit conversion. Okay, that is example 4. Now, if you're a more visual person and you want to understand why that works that way, if you imagine, let's say, I don't know, a square 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer, if you were to do it, I'm not going to draw everything, but let's say you're like going to break this up into like a grid with 1,000 boxes across and 1,000 boxes down. Okay, each side of this square would be 10 to the 3 meters. Okay, this would be 10 to the 3 meters. This would be 10 to the 3 meters. And so if you were to find the area, you would do 10 to the 3 times 10 to the 3, which would be 10 to the 6. Okay, so that's maybe like a more visual way of thinking about this concept. Okay, but that's how you do exponential unit conversions. And we're going to do one more. This one's a little more complicated. Okay, I'm going to erase this, so pause it here if you want to write that down. Okay, and the last example in this video, it says convert 1 cubic foot into cubic inches. Okay, so see if you can do this one on your own. Pause it here. Try to do example 5 on your own. And now let's take a look at this. You always start with your given. And I don't know cubic feet to cubic inches, but I do know that 1 foot is 12 inches. And to get these two units to cancel, I have to cube everything on the bottom, which means I need to cube everything on the top. And if you multiply that out, you do 12 to the power 3, you get 1728 cubic inches. Okay, so hopefully that's what you got for example 5. Now, at this point, you should be able to complete your unit conversion practice worksheet. Okay, so please do that before the start of the next class. You should be able to do it today, as a matter of fact. As always, please let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you guys in the next video.